Welcome back, deep divers. We're about to plunge headfirst into a deep, deep pool of ideas. This is going to be fun.
Oh, I can already tell this is going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Right. Today's deep dive is going to be taking some inspiration from the work of Asa Raskin.
Oh, Asa,
I
yeah.
mean, anyone who invents infinite scroll and then is like, oh, wait a minute,
Right. Talk about having second thoughts about your impact.
that's got to be quite a journey. But, he's also a co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology.
Yeah, focusing on making sure technology actually helps us, not just distracts us.
Exactly. And then he's also involved with the Earth Species Project, which is using AI to try to decode animal communication.
Wow, what a range. So from the digital world to the natural world, that's fascinating.
It is. And, he was involved with the social dilemma, too, and his background is just like all over the place, mathematics, dark matter physics. But what really seems to drive him is this, deep sense of care for humanity and other life forms and, a real desire to spread compassion.
That's a really powerful combination, having the technical expertise and that deep ethical grounding.
Right. And so the central theme we're going to be swimming around in today, inspired by Isaac's work, is this idea that, we're at this really unique moment with AI. He calls it both a final test and a great invitation.
Ooh, I like that. Final test, great invitation. That has a nice ring to it.
Right. And so let's dive into one of his core ideas, which he calls the paradox of progress. And he starts off by asking this really provocative question. Given how often our innovations seem to have these unintended negative consequences, are we really conscious as a species?
Ooh, that is a deep one. I mean, it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
right? Are we just kind of stumbling through progress, not really thinking about the long-term impacts?
Yeah, it's we're so focused on the immediate benefits of new technologies or ideas that we don't always consider the potential downsides or the wider ripple effects. Think about social media. It's a great way to stay connected with people, but it also has had a huge impact on our attention spans and even our mental health in some cases.
Right, right. It's we get so excited about the shiny new thing
Yeah.
that we don't always stop to ask, hold on, what could go wrong here?
Exactly. And so Asa argues that there's this common thread that runs through many of our current global problems. Think about rising inequality or political polarization or the climate crisis.
Mm.
And he says this thread is our tendency towards what he calls narrow optimization.
Narrow optimization.
Yeah, focusing too intensely on just one metric or a limited set of goals. And in the process, we kind of miss the bigger picture.
Oh, I see. It's like tunnel vision.
Right, exactly. Think about the platforms we use every day. They're often designed to maximize engagement, right? To keep us scrolling and clicking. But sometimes that comes at the expense of our well-being or our ability to have thoughtful conversations or even just our sense of connection with the real world.
I think I'm starting to understand what he means by this paradox of progress. We're so focused on making things better in this one specific area that we end up creating problems in other areas.
Yeah, and those problems can sometimes be even bigger than the ones we were trying to solve in the first place. And so for Asa, this narrow focus leads to a kind of disconnection. We become disconnected from ourselves, from each other in meaningful ways, from the intricate systems that govern our world.
And from nature, right. I mean, that's a big part of his work with the Earth Species Project.
Absolutely. He sees this fundamental disconnection as the crucial link between the Center for Humane Technology's work, trying to reconnect us in the digital age, and the Earth Species Project, which is all about trying to reconnect us with the languages of other life forms.
That connection is really interesting. It's he's saying that whether we're talking about our relationship with technology or our relationship with nature, it all comes down to understanding and connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so this brings us to this really cool part of Asa's vision. He thinks that AI can actually help us expand our perception to see and understand things that are currently beyond our grasp.
Wait, really? I thought AI was part of the problem.
Well, it can be, but it also has this incredible potential to break us out of our limited human perspective. He uses this great analogy. He says that our current understanding of animal communication is only hearing the loudest shouts, like what we see on Twitter.
Oh, I get it. We're missing all the subtle, quieter forms of communication that are probably happening all around us.
Exactly. And so to really drive home just how much we don't know, Asa created this thing he calls the humble graph. It basically encompasses all of time and all of space.
Whoa, that's a pretty big graph.
Right. And within that vastness, the entirety of human experience, everything we can sense and understand, is just this tiny, tiny sliver.
That really puts things into perspective. We think we know so much, but we're really just scratching the surface.
Right. And so that's where AI comes in. Asa believes that AI has the power to widen the aperture of our perception, to help us detect and understand signals and patterns that are currently invisible to us.
So it's like AI is a tool that can help us see beyond the limitations of our own senses and our current scientific understanding.
Exactly. And he gives some really cool examples of how this is already starting to happen. Like, Joyce Poole, right? The elephant researcher.
Yeah, I've heard of her. She's amazing.
Well, she used AI to discover that elephants have unique names for each other.
Wait, what? Elephants have names? Like they call each other by specific names?
That's what the research suggests. It seems like they have individual identities that are recognized and addressed within their communities.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder what other forms of complex communication are happening out there that we're completely missing.
I know, right? And it's not just elephants. It turns out that parents spend the first few weeks of their chicks' lives whispering a unique name to them over and over again until the baby can mimic it. And then they use that name throughout the chick's life.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. It's like a little secret name between a parent and their child.
It is. And again, it just underscores the importance of names as part of individual identity, even in species that are so different from us.
So AI is helping us see that our way of communicating, with names and all, might not be so unique after all.
Exactly. And then there's this whole world of plant communication, which I know sounds kind of strange, but it's fascinating.
Plant communication. How do plants communicate?
Well, there was this study at the University Tel Aviv where they found that primrose flowers can actually respond to the sound of an approaching pollinator.
Like a bee buzzing by.
Yeah. And get this, when they hear the bee, they start producing more nectar within just 3 seconds.
Oh, that's so cool. So they're not just sitting there passively. They're actively responding to their environment.
Right. And get this, it turns out that stress plants also emit sounds, but at frequencies that are too high for us to hear. So it's like there's this whole symphony of information exchange happening in the plant world that we're completely oblivious to.
Wow. It's like there's this whole hidden dimension of communication going on all around us.
Totally. And this is where AI has this huge potential. It can help us tune into those hidden signals and start to understand the languages of other species. And, speaking of languages, the way that AI approaches translation is pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, how can a machine possibly translate between languages when it doesn't even understand what the words mean?
Right. It's like, what's the AI thinking? Well, Asa calls this the one weird trick of AI. Basically, it translates conceptual relationships into spatial relationships.
Spatial relationships, like in physical space.
Well, not exactly. It's more like a mathematical space with lots of dimensions. So imagine like organizing stars in the sky based on their relationships to each other.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So it's like AI is creating a map of meaning, but instead of using words, it's using distances and directions in this multidimensional space.
Right. It's like AI is learning the underlying structure of information, regardless of what form that information takes.
That's fascinating. So it's not about understanding the meaning of individual words, but about understanding the relationships between them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you take the most common words in English and map how AI sees them, you'll find that words with similar meanings end up clustered together in this spatial representation. And what's even cooler is that words that share a semantic relationship also share a consistent geometric relationship.
Oh, I think I read about this. It's like the king is to man as woman is to queen analogy, right?
You got it. In AI's spatial representation of language, the relationship between king and man is the same as the relationship between woman and queen. And what's really wild is that researchers discovered that you can do this for different human languages, like English and Spanish. And then you can basically just rotate one of these meaning shapes to align it with the other and achieve translation.
That is wild. So it's like there's this like universal underlying structure to human language, even though the words and grammar are so different.
Exactly. And this is what really sparked the idea behind the Earth Species Project. They're like, well, if we can do this with human languages, maybe we can do it with animal communication too.
That would be incredible. But, I mean, human languages are all so different from each other already. How could we possibly hope to translate the language of, like, a dolphin or a whale?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Asa gets into that. He talks about how some species, like sperm whales, live in completely different sensory worlds than we do. Like, they navigate by sound in complete darkness. So would their meaning shape be totally alien to ours?
It's a really mind-bending thought. It makes you realize how much our human perspective shapes our understanding of the world.
Right. But here's the thing. Asa explains that this whole meaning shape thing isn't just limited to human language. Like you can do the same thing with images.
Images, like pictures.
Yeah. You can train AI on millions of images of human faces, and it'll create this spatial representation where similar looking faces are close together. And even more amazing, relationships between faces, like the difference between a smiling face and a non-smiling face of the same person, also have a consistent spatial relationship.
Oh, wow. So it's like AI is learning the grammar of faces.
Totally. And this is how AI image generation works, like with DALL-E or Midjourney. Theirs learn to map between the meaning shape of language and the meaning shape of images.
So that's why you can type in like a cat riding a unicycle on the moon, and it can actually generate an image of that.
Exactly. It's basically translating your words into a visual representation. And get this, they've even used the same AI technology to reconstruct images from brain scans. Like they showed people pictures while they're in an fMRI machine, and then they used AI to analyze the brain activity and recreate what the person was looking at.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So it's like AI is learning to read minds.
In a way, yeah. It's pretty wild, and it gets even weirder. Researchers were able to figure out where people were standing in a room just by analyzing Wi-Fi signals.
Wait, what? How is that even possible?
Because Wi-Fi signals bounce off objects and people, it creates this kind of subtle sonar effect. And so AI can learn to see through walls, basically, just by analyzing the patterns in the Wi-Fi data.
That is both amazing and kind of creepy. Like, makes you wonder what other information is out there that we're completely unaware of.
Right, and it's not just Wi-Fi. Asa talks about how even DNA can be seen as a language with its own shape. And scientists are using AI to analyze and manipulate DNA, like designing new versions of viruses.
Wow, that's getting into some serious ethical territory.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the big takeaways here. This technology is incredibly powerful, and it has the potential for both good and bad. Like, imagine AI-powered tools that could help us cure diseases or design sustainable energy solutions.
That would be amazing. But like you said, there's also the potential for misuse.
Absolutely. And so one of the big questions we're facing is how to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly. Like, how do we prevent it from being used to create autonomous weapons or to manipulate people on a mass scale?
It's a huge challenge, and there's no easy answer. But I think it's important to have these conversations now, before it's too late.
I totally agree. And, thinking about all this, about AI's ability to translate between different languages of reality, it makes you wonder about the nature of reality itself. Like, is AI giving us a glimpse of something more fundamental, something beyond our limited human perspective?
That's a deep question. I mean, we're so used to experiencing the world through our five senses. But what if there's so much more out there that we're just not equipped to perceive?
Yeah, and what if AI can help us tap into those hidden dimensions of reality?
That would be incredible. It'd be like opening our eyes to a whole new universe.
And, coming back to the Earth Species Project, they're trying to do just that. They're using AI to try to understand the languages of other animals, to see if we can bridge that communication gap that's existed for so long.
I think that's a really noble goal. Imagine being able to have a conversation with a dolphin or a whale. What would we learn from them?
Right, and what would they learn from us? It's like this whole new era of interspecies communication could be on the horizon. And, thinking about all this, it really highlights the importance of expanding our circle of compassion.
Yeah, it's like if we can learn to understand and appreciate other forms of life, maybe we can start to heal some of the divisions that exist in our own species as well.
I think that's a beautiful thought. And so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Given AI's remarkable ability to reveal hidden structures and translate across different languages of reality, what fundamental shifts in our values and our understanding of our place within the interconnected web of life might be necessary to navigate this new era in a way that ensures a thriving future for all beings on this planet? Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.